Hi, Crusty John here. Hope you can hear me over the wind. I looked at YouTubes of how to make a wood stove with a 55-gallon drum. A lot of people are using the kits, horizontal 55-gallon drum. A couple things with that. First of all, we use this 3-foot-long firewood, so there's a lot of wasted space there. And also, you don't have to buy the kit. So I learned this up in Bush, Alaska. When you make a 55-gallon drum, about 5 or 6 inches down, you cut out a 12-inch band. You can see where that's been cut out of this, and the band's down underneath. The reason there's a piece missing from the band that's down underneath is we cut that out to make the door, which is going to go over this opening that we created here. To get the whole thing to go together, we're going to pound out the top of this lip right here so that it fits down over the top of the lower piece here. We'll have a shorty. It's going to be about a 1-inch overlap. You can weld that, you can bolt it together. I use pop rivets to make sure that it stays fastened. And it's going to take quite a bit of pounding. You're going to use a hammer, probably go around about 3 or 4 times, just pounding it out about 1.5 inches up. You want to expand that metal. You can also use something like a crescent wrench to slightly bend out that upper lip and also to bend in the lower lip so that you can fit the two over. Then you're going to want to pound that top down real tight. Also cut out where the stovepipe is going to go in, where so this is a piece of the band that's underneath, another piece of the band that's underneath. This is going to be the door. Put hinges on that. You need to line up these 2 little lips here. And with the door that was cut out there, you can take this little piece, cut it right down the middle. I use a hacksaw. And on the bottom, you'll see later how I created the air intake control. So I'm going to have hinges, a latch to shut the door, and then underneath here, an air intake for the primary air where it's going to hit the fire when it's burning. Before I install this, by the way, no insurance company is going to probably pay if anything happens to the structure that you put one of these stoves or even a stove from a kit. So this would be for a shop, or I use it in my sauna. So we're going to have the top on. We're going to make the door, the hinges. We're going to make the air intake. And then before we install it anywhere, outside, we're going to burn it in because we need to burn all this paint off of it and also the residue of whatever was stored inside of it. If by any chance you can find a heavy-duty barrel to do this with, this is a fairly heavy gauge barrel, but any barrel will work. The thinner gauge ones won't last as long, but they're easier to work. So again, we'll burn this real hot to burn all the paint off. Before we install it, I pull together the band that's at the bottom. I pull that together and rivet it, and that becomes the stand that keeps the hot stove up off the ground. I also put about 1 inch of sand at the bottom of it, so it's not burning against the metal on the bottom of the barrel. That pretty much covers it. I'll have to show you some other pictures. Okay, here we have the vertical barrel stove that I built, just like the other one that we looked at. This one has been heated up and burned in so that the blue paint has turned black and essentially burned off. It's just bare metal now, except for some of the places where the heat hasn't gotten to it. But I had this extremely hot, and I don't anticipate getting it that hot again, so I think all the paint's been burned off. We've put these hinges on to keep that piece of the band that we cut off from the bottom. And this band that is part of the bottom was between this lip here and the upper part, so this whole barrel was about 12 inches higher. The distance here is about 5 or 6 inches down. You begin your cut, and then you have a 10-inch band that you cut out from the stove. The hinges, a couple bucks at the store. You can use some kind of piece of metal for your handle. I drilled it and put a wood handle on it. And then this doohickey, it's something I've simply bolted on, but it's a piece of the metal from the barrel that has been bent out so that it will catch this handle and give me a secure lock. You might remember I showed you how there was a rim from this ridge that comes with most barrels. I had cut down the middle, and now I've put that on here, cut down the middle, took a piece out of the middle, and then took a long piece of the flat part of the barrel, and I can move that in and out. Drilled a bunch of 3/8 holes here, so I can close off the primary air that's feeding the stove and have it burn for a lot longer if I want. This is installed in a sauna. I really like that it is fairly thin metal as opposed to a cast iron stove that might take several hours to heat up all the way. I can have this as hot as it gets within a half hour or an hour and heat up a small sauna. Also, a stove like this, the same size, it's got a 26-inch diameter. You can put quite a bit of wood in it, and I did heat a 600 square foot cabin in Alaska that wasn't terribly well insulated, but in Fairbanks, interior Alaska, I did stay fairly warm. I also know people in the bush that live in campus tents all winter, but this is their stove. So your total cost might simply be the price of the, in my case it was the price of the hinges here, and it takes about a day to build one of these. As far as cutting the metal, I was lucky in that I could borrow what's called a plasma cutter. I've also done it by reversing the blade on a skill saw to cut the metal, and then to cut the round hole for the stovepipe, I did a few holes with a drill and then did the round outline of the stovepipe with a jigsaw. I do know people who have used simply a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, that has been filed in the middle so that it has kind of a V, and they use the screwdriver and a hammer to cut the hole all the way around. That's if you're pretty desperate and far away from electricity, you would do that. So I hope this is helpful, and we'll try to get a few more pictures in. Here's a little zoom if you want to look at how that door is put together. Here's another view of how that door is put together, and again, it's just a piece of the metal from the barrel that created the device that the handle will latch on. One other thing I didn't mention is I do have this secured with brackets at both the bottom and at the top of that stand so that the stove can't fall over. And so you want to make sure that it's installed fairly securely. And it's optional. If you have a sauna, you might want to put rocks in there. And then I simply went out through the wall with the stovepipe. Here's an old stove that just did its duty for about 5 years, having regular, at least weekly saunas, having a lot of water poured on it, and also you'll see as I walk away, this sauna is out floating on a pond, and so there was pretty constant humidity, and it was because it was a lightweight barrel that it only lasted about 5 years. I've had heavyweight barrels last 10 years, and that's what I try to find from now on. You won't see too many floating saunas in Iowa, but I think they have them in Europe quite a bit.